comrades! Alright, now today I was originally going to do a very different video, but this morning when I got up, I was browsing through Facebook and I came across the news that Andrew Tate has had his appeal against like a 30-day imprisonment thing he had in Romania has been revoked. He's lost his appeal. He has to stay in jail for 30 days. It's because he's a threat. You know, the thing is, they worried about that if they let him out of jail, he might run off before he actually faces court. Now, Andrew Tate, he's been in the news quite a bit this year. More recently with the whole, the real Pizzagate, as people have called it, where he got into a exchange on Twitter with Greta Thunberg. Everyone remembers Greta. Boomers hate her. A lot of MRAs and stuff, they don't like her very much either. But he got into a bit of a Twitter spat over her where she made fun of the size of his PP, and he did a reply video. And then, shortly later we learned that he'd been arrested by the police in Romania on sex trafficking charges. Not the first time he's got in trouble with the law for this sort of thing, mind you. He's been in a bit of trouble with this sort of thing before. But, So I thought, okay, I'm going to do a video on this, because this links to, a topic I've been wanting to touch on. So I thought, while it's in the news, there's a good opportunity to do so. Andrew Tate, he got his start as a professional kickboxing. He's a kickboxer from 2007 to 2020. He actually did quite well for himself in the kickboxing career. Then in 2013, he got together with his brother and they started a webcam company with webcam girls and stuff. And they did very well for them. They made a lot of money out of that, and they later began the Hustlers University, which was a cryptocurrency and social media pyramid scheme that's, a bit legally dubious there, and they sucked a lot of guys out of their money there. But he came to prominence online within the alt-right in about 2016 when that was all becoming a big popular thing. But he was around there that time, he was a bit of a figure on Twitter and stuff, but he didn't really explode in popularity until earlier last year, 2022. And he was famous for getting banned off Twitter and TikTok for his often misogynistic and outdated views upon women, where he basically, advocates for men to, be, abusive basically towards women, and has these really kind of shitty views towards them, thinking, that women basically should serve men as slaves. A man should rule over and dominate his partner, sort of thing. That women are basically subhuman second-class citizens, and that men are innately superior. So you can see that quite a few people have had issues with him and his views, often for good reason. But he's a self-described misogynist, and he promotes the whole male domination thing, and so a few people have taken issue with him over that. But I wanted to get into the focus not less so much on Andrew, but on the MRA, the men's rights activist movement, which he is a part of. And don't get me wrong, there are some great men's rights advocates, organisations and figures out there who actually advocate for real men's rights and relate to issues relating to men, the actual issues they face within society. But something we've seen is an all too common theme that keeps repeating itself, especially when they're right wing or quite far right figures on either online or in social media and stuff, is that a lot of their rhetoric is it's about men's rights, but although the rhetoric revolves around women, they're always talking about women and about how women and feminism are caused a lot of the problems in society, and how they've de-emasculated and feminized men, which is led to men having apparently all these problems and that, which is basically caused a lot of men a lot of depression and stress and anxiety and stuff, and has really messed with the social order and the natural order of the hierarchy of the sexes and how things are supposed to be. So they blame women for a lot of these problems. But it's not just blaming them for that, it's there's a lot of ingrained misogyny within that as well. How Jordan Peterson famously quoted said that if women wore makeup at work and dressed up, looked presentable, that it was partly their fault if they were sexually harassed or sexually assaulted at work. That kind of thing. Real class act sort of material. But when I was looking into it and that, I did about the MRA movement. The Southern Poverty Law Center, which is an organization in the US, they do a lot of work with with advocating for people's rights and sort of things across a lot of issues like gender, race, religious sort of thing, and they focus on a lot of hate groups and stuff as well. So they do a lot of great advocacy work. But they put out a report based on the MRA movement. I just wanted to read a quote from here, is that The movement voices legitimate and sometimes disturbing complaints about the treatment of men. What is often remarkable is the misogynistic tone which pervades so many. A thinly veiled desire for the domination of women, a conviction that the current system oppresses men in favour of women, that are the unifying these are the unifying tenets of the male supremacist worldview. Alright, so basically this goes to support just what I was saying there. Is that, well, put it simply, a lot of these people, Andrew Tate specifically, he doesn't give a shit about men's rights. He doesn't give a shit about their fans, their fan base sort of thing. All they see them as, useful idiots who are a good source for popularity and income for them. I read an article I saw the other day where Andrew Tate had referred to the guys who got scammed by their whole webcam company as, pathetic losers. Because some of them, blown thousands. One guy lost, something was awesome. If I recall, it was $200,000. He sold his house and that, and blown his house on all his money, his savings, and everything on these webcam models. And the webcam models actually encouraged and promoted these fake sob stories to guys, and then to get them to feel sorry for them, to like them, to maybe develop feelings and stuff for them, and give them as much money as they possibly can. And that's part of the scam Andrew and his brother were running. But yeah, that's what they see their customer base as, just useful idiots who can give them, popularity and money and stuff. And they tell them what they hear, don't they? You often see these people saying how Andrew Tate, Jordan Peterson, they're great guys, they're really smart, they're geniuses, they tell it how it is, blah, blah, blah. Well, no, they're not smart, they're not geniuses. They're just, if they've found someone who's, they can feed, they're feeding your confirmation bias. They're telling you what you want to hear, how you want to hear it and stuff. And validating your own beliefs and opinions of how the world is, about women, your place in society, blah, blah, blah. And they found a willing audience, more than happy to fork over money to them for that, to provide them, with the luxurious lives and they have. All Andrew Tate with all his cars and his Bugatti and stuff. So that's a bit of the thing over there. So obviously this is problematic for a few reasons. If you're someone who has any sort of moral fibre, you'd find issue with a lot of this sort of stuff. But I wanted to talk about briefly real men's rights activism, these people claim to be about men's rights and that, but you never hear them talking, going out on a limb, talking about how they need to help guys with addictions, or guys, who are suicidal, or have depression, or, anxiety issues, mental health issues, which are pretty big issues within our society, and provide, sort of help through the whole toxic masculinity thing, where men aren't allowed to talk about, aren't supposed to talk about or show their emotions or their stresses and that. Talk about, shouldn't that, manly man, a real man doesn't talk about, what bothers him and stuff. And of course that leads people to a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress and depression, because they're never, they're never getting a good emotional outlet for their issues. They're not ever really seeking help. They're just trying to go everything through life alone. And it's quite a really difficult way, to go through life. And again, so, a lot of modern times we've had things to try to counter that. And it's been pretty successful in the past 20 years. You've seen a lot of attitudes and people, even some older people in that as well, have begun to change quite dramatically in that. So society's taken a good step in that direction. But there's a lot of Jordan Peterson, they kind of mentions guys depression, anxiety and stuff. But it's also always within the context of the misogyny thing is at the background. The women are always rotating around the background. Women are somehow at fault. Feminism as at fault. Not women specifically, but feminism. They like to attack feminism, which basically a move that's the advocating for women's rights and stuff, and looking at issues that are related to women as, as a demographic and the issues they face as being part of that demographic. That's ultimately all that feminism is, but, they have a problem with that, of course. So I just wanted to mention some, more of the issues that men's face that they don't really go through. I'm a big advocate for men's, rights, by the way, and sociology is one of my big favourite things I would like to study and stuff. And it's there's a lot of issues that affect men that we should be focusing on. Like homelessness is a big one. Employment insecurity is a big one. Depression, anxiety, and stress. I mentioned them before, but parenting, especially if they're a single parent or they don't have custody of their kids, there are some legitimate issues with children in custody and the family law courts and all that sort of stuff, which the people could be addressing. And I guess they do kind of address it in a way, but it's you can address all these issues without bringing your own biases and hatred against women or whatever against it, But there's also, addiction, drug addiction I mentioned, gambling addiction, injury, workplace injury, disability, Your financial insecurity is another massive issue. Housing, a lot of guys face racism and xenophobia, especially if you're a part of, a minority demographic. Homophobia for gay men, they suffer a lot of homophobia in the workplace with their friends, relationships, and general society. Alcoholism is a massive issue. Lots of guys have drinking problems, and the prevalence of alcoholism in our society is massive because it's such an easy to get and accessible drug, and it's hard to get, and it's hard to get addiction. It's hard to get over, and that as well. Drug addictions in general, it's extremely hard to get over. You ask someone who's ever been an addict, it was the hardest thing they ever did, and they'll tell you probably getting clean is probably the hardest thing they've ever done in their life. And I know quite a bit about that because I worked for 9 months in my work placement in a drug rehab facility, but I'll talk about that more in later videos. There's relationship issues. Another big issue that affects everyone. Everyone has relationship issues in their life of some sort, whether it's like family, their parents, friends, partners, people at work they work with, just the general people around them, Everyone has issues of some sort and that, and a lot of guys don't really know how to handle those issues or know where to go with it, Health issues. There's a lot of, as being human, there's a lot of big health issues that can bother men, such as prostate cancer, cancer in general, diabetes, heart attacks, strokes, heart disease, liver disease. For people who are sexually active, STDs is one. The sexual health is a big issue that affects men as well, especially when men have the whole social stigma of having, to be able to be a real man, to pound it out, to be able to perform, There's a lot of performance-related stress and anxiety that can come with that. But these people, these MRA actors, they don't talk about that. They don't give a fuck about that. You mention that to them, they'll make fun of you and laugh at you about it, call you a little man sort of thing, It's, But other issues, anger management, emotional intelligence. A lot of people do. Well, guys, especially older guys, can have a lot of hard time managing their anger and emotions. And emotional intelligence is something that a lot of people in general of all ages can struggle with, It's about being able to stop, recognize and understand the emotions you're experiencing in the moment, why you're experiencing, control it, and vent your emotions in appropriate and effective ways, where you're not causing a scene or making a fool of yourself or causing a lot more problems than there should be. Domestic violence, another massive issue for men as well, either as perpetrators and, yes, as victims of domestic violence. Because the MRAs love to skew all the whole thing on the domestic violence statistics and stuff. Look, men are overwhelmingly the perpetrators of domestic violence, but men are victims of domestic violence just as often as women are, because the domestic violence is coming from other men who are the perpetrators. See, I've never heard one of them ever mention this in my life, ever before. But because domestic violence is not just experienced by people in relationships. It can be towards parents, towards children. Elder abuse is a big one. Child abuse that's domestic violence and stuff. And in relationships, it's a massive issue in gay relationships. There's a lot of domestic violence within the queer community that doesn't often get called out. And if these MRA activists actually gave a fuck about that, they'll be mentioning that, wouldn't they? They don't, because they don't care. That's they're only grifting. It's a grift to their audience. They're telling you they want to hear because they want the popularity and their money and stuff, and that's all they really care about. And they found a bunch of gullible suckers willing to pay them to have someone tell them that they want what they want to hear. And go, oh, it's a great man, he's a genius. It's a bit of projection there, hey, because you want to think of you and yourself and your own views as the way it is, and that's the genius sort of thing. It's kind of self-confirming the inner genius within yourself, which doesn't really exist now, does it? And But I could rant all night about all this stuff, all these sorts of issues that men have and that. But I couldn't honestly do a fair analysis on all these issues and stuff that men face in one video. So I'm just going to leave this video here at that. And I'm going to come back to a lot of these issues more in the future and have dedicated specific videos to them and that. And we'll advocate for some real men's issues. We'll do some real fucking advocacy on this channel, my friends.